This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
This is a real good story about Bronx and his dad, Ryan, real United Airlines customers.
We were returning home, and one of the flight attendants asked Bronx if he wanted to see the flight deck and meet Captain Andrew.
I got to sit in the driver's seat.
I grew up in an aviation family, and seeing Bronx kind of reminded me of myself when I was that age.
That's Andrew, a real United pilot.
These small interactions can shape a kid's future.
It felt like I was the captain.
Allowing my son to see the flight deck will stick with us forever.
That's how good leads the way.
I want to start today by playing a testy little exchange from last week between President Trump and CNN's Caitlin Collins. Collins is asking the president about his decision to pardon Changpeng Zhao, better known as CZ. CZ was the CEO of the crypto platform Binance, and he pled guilty to money laundering last year.
Founder of Binance. Can you explain why you chose to pardon him, and did it have anything to do with his involvement in your
family's? Which one? Who is that?
The founder of Binance. He has an involvement in your own family's crypto
one,
business.
Yes. I believe we're talking about the same person because I do pardon a lot of people. I don't know. He was recommended by a lot of people. A lot of people say that. Are you talking about the crypto person? A lot of people say that he wasn't guilty of anything. He served 4 months in jail, and they say that he was not guilty of anything, that what he did, well, you don't know much about crypto. You know nothing about nothing. You're fake news. But let me just tell you.
I played that exchange for Alex Kirshner. Alex is a contributing writer here at Slate who writes a lot about crypto. And I asked him to remind everyone what CZ actually did. Because if you listen to the president, well, it's hard to know.
The United States has rules that are designed to stop people from helping others launder money. And Binance not only didn't stick within the spirit of those rules, but flouted them aggressively, even mocked them in internal communications that the United States government unearthed. And the reason why Changpeng Zhao went to jail was because he turned Binance into a deliberate playground for money launderers and financial criminals who were using crypto to skirt the rules of the U.S. and really global financial system. And he did it very much on purpose.
Thank you. I wanted to set the record straight there. It's worth noting that Trump himself has gone from crypto skeptic to crypto entrepreneur during his second term. It is also worth noting that this past spring, Binance made a deal with the Trump family to host the president's stablecoin on the exchange. Can you tell me a little bit about that deal?
Yeah. So Donald Trump's family, along with Steve Witkoff's family, that's his envoy who's been very involved in a lot of his peace negotiations, have a business venture together involving a number of cryptocurrency products, but one of their main crypto projects is a stablecoin. There's also, of course, Trump's meme coin and other crypto-adjacent pursuits that they're in. And Binance is on the other side of a deal with World Liberty Financial, which is the Trump-Witkoff crypto operation, to, though the mechanics are somewhat complicated, to promote the stablecoin and to generate a significant amount of fee-based revenue for the Trump family by helping this stablecoin proliferate on Binance and in the crypto ecosystem generally.
So Caitlin's question was right on the money, or on the Trump family's money, you could say. I wanted to talk to Alex about this because he just wrote a big story for Slate about why the president seems to keep pardoning financial criminals.
I think that the Trump administration, and the president in particular, has shown a real keen interest in pardoning people who, number one, flatter the president personally, number two, enrich the president personally, in CZ's case, or number 3, whose pardons or commutations would support political agendas, narratives pushed by the president. And he started that in his first hours in office when he pardoned or commuted the sentences of more than 1,000 January 6ers. And, there's not a ton in common between the founder and operator of the world's largest crypto exchange and some guy who attacked a police officer at the Capitol. But what they do have in common is that they contribute to Trump's sense of himself as the dominant person in America and the world, and to flatter him in some way or another, whether that's by supporting his delusion that he didn't lose the 2020 election or by helping him make significant amounts of money. And turns out that's a great way to get a pardon in 2025.
Today on the show, all the president's crypto pardons. I'm Lizzie O'Leary, and you're listening to What Next TBD, a show about technology, power, and how the future will be determined. Stick around. Every business owner knows that missing a business call is like watching money fly out the window and straight into your competitor's hands. That's why Quo, formerly OpenPhone, is the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is a business phone system that works right from an app on your phone or computer. Your team can share one number to collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox, keeping response times fast. Quo's built-in AI can log calls, write summaries, and set up next steps. Even after hours, Quo's got your back. Quo's AI agent can answer the phone, qualify leads, and route calls to the right person, so no customer is ever left hanging. Quo helps businesses stay connected and look professional. That's why over 90,000 businesses are already running on Quo. Quo is offering TBD listeners 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/TBD. That's QUO.com/TBD. You can even keep your existing number for free. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks makes it easy to find the perfect gifts and holiday looks that suit your personal style. The holidays can be a lot of things: exciting, relaxing, heartwarming, and yes, sometimes even a little stressful. That's why you need Saks.com. Saks makes holiday shopping easy, stress-free, and most importantly, fun, whether it's for yourself, your family and friends, or even the pickiest person on your list. You can feel confident going into this holiday season, knowing that Saks is there to help you find inspiration, curate a holiday wish list, pick out gifts for your loved ones, and have a look ready for whatever might come your way. Whether it's an office holiday party, a cozy night in, or a vacation getaway, Saks has everything you need. If you're looking for shopping to be personalized and easy this holiday season, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to shop for everyone on your list. I want to reach back a little bit and examine who the president has pardoned this term. Do we have a sense of exactly how many people have gotten pardons, or roughly?
Trump has pardoned or commuted in the neighborhood of 1,600 people in his first year. The vast majority of those were those January 6th actions that he took right after he came back into office. But I believe that Zhao was his 73rd other pardon or commutation this year. And in total, more than a fifth of those are for people who committed fraud specifically. And then there are a bunch of other financial criminals in there. You have bribery, conspiracy, knowingly and willfully permitting a convicted felon to be in the insurance business, aiding and assisting false tax returns, failure to pay trust fund taxes, Bank Secrecy Act violations. It's really quite a potpourri of financial and white-collar crimes that have been warranting of pardons in Trump's eyes this year.
Within this universe of white-collar crime, you also have a number of people within the crypto industry. Ross Ulbricht, who founded Silk Road, Roger Ver, am I saying that right? One of the first Bitcoin evangelists. He reached a deal with the administration that would see his charges dropped if he paid $48 million in back taxes. He pardoned a handful of folks from the BitMEX who had pleaded guilty to money laundering. Why this focus on people convicted of crimes in the crypto space?
Well, Trump sort of said it in that answer to Caitlin Collins that you played at the beginning of the segment. Trump didn't exactly say it like this, but when Trump says that Zhao was recommended by a lot of very good people or recommended by a lot of people, what Trump is obviously talking about is executives and major players in the crypto world, who, of course, have been huge bankrollers of his political operations, whether his own or outside groups supporting him, and the same with congressional Republicans who have his ear by virtue of being major financial backers of his politics.
Of course, we still have probably the biggest name in crypto, Sam Bankman-Fried. He's the former head of FTX. For anyone who doesn't remember, serving a 25-year sentence for his role in the nesting doll of fraud schemes in relation to that exchange. He's been lobbying pretty hard for a pardon. Do we think Trump might give it to him?
I think there are a couple ways to look at the Sam Bankman-Fried shameless bid for a pardon that he is putting together right now. The reason to think that he wouldn't get it and that Bankman-Fried would have to serve out his 25-year sentence is that when he went off to jail for the numerous frauds that he committed in the course of his management of FTX, the crypto industry really tried to make Sam Bankman-Fried a black sheep. You know, there were other executives in crypto who really wanted people to think that Bankman-Fried was an outlier, an example of a bad apple, of what is wrong with crypto and denigrating the reputation of crypto when so many other people are acting more responsibly in the space. And there was this desire to really throw Sam Bankman-Fried to the wolves, though maybe that analogy doesn't make a ton of sense because he did it. He committed all of those crimes. But I think the reason to feel a little bit more optimistic if you were Bankman-Fried is that Sam Bankman-Fried has certain common enemies with Donald Trump. The judge who oversaw Bankman-Fried's trial and actually had Bankman-Fried remanded to jail before he was even convicted because of some pretrial hijinks was the same judge in New York, Lewis Kaplan, who oversaw the case that E. Jean Carroll brought against Trump, where he was found liable for sexual abuse. One of the line prosecutors who really grilled Sam Bankman-Fried, really cooked him, honestly, in cross-examination at his trial was Danielle Sassoon. And if you remember the name Danielle Sassoon, she was back in the news earlier this year when she resigned from her role as the acting U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, rather than participate in that obviously shambolic dropping of charges against Eric Adams in exchange for cooperation with the Trump administration. And Bankman-Fried has tried to play this up. He did a Tucker Carlson interview. He's relayed some tweets to people who post them for him, where he talks about how he, used to be a Democrat, but he really saw the lawlessness of the Biden administration, and he saw the way that the Democrats were so hostile to crypto. And by the end, he was actually really supporting a lot of Republican causes with dark money donations.
So we're just ignoring the fact that he was a massive Democratic donor, or he is ignoring that part?
He is trying to bury that part. But it's a great point that you mentioned. I don't know if that helps him with Donald Trump. But, this is just a very politics is personal vanity play on his part to try to make the president realize that they have some common enemies and that pardoning him would be, somehow a pro-crypto step. But the thing is, I'm not sure that the very nice people or whoever that told Trump to pardon CZ are going to tell him the same thing about Sam Bankman-Fried.
Well, let's talk about some of the other people who are getting pardons, because many of them seem to have a direct through line to businesses related to the Trump family, the Trump administration. So Justin Sun, who was facing his own fraud case from the SEC, saw that case disappear after he bought millions of dollars worth of Trump's stablecoin. Boy, that again seems like a very direct line. I
hate to come on this podcast and be the could you imagine if Obama did this, guy? But come on, I don't want to flatter this by talking about it in too couched or too high-minded of journalistic terms. It obviously would be a presidency-ending scandal in any other administration in history. Like, we can just be honest about this. And either you think it's okay for this kind of transaction to go down, or you don't. And I wish that people would just be more honest about it rather than trying to claim that there's not this obvious connection between the personal enrichment and the dropping of a case.
Right. So the other part of this is the Trump family stablecoin, USD1. So the biggest hurdle they faced with launching the stablecoin is basically widespread adoption, getting people to use it. But with CZ, who we started talking about, and Justin Sun, they both helped legitimize the stablecoin. And I guess I wonder, does their participation in it therefore make it a more widespread, adoptable token, or was someone else going to do it because they wanted to get on Trump's good side?
I think at the end of the day, Trump was going to find somebody to do just about any kind of crypto deal that he would want. Trump is really aggressive, really not shy about trying to profit from the presidency in any way that he possibly can. And in the crypto industry, you have the ideal dance partner, a group that feels like it has not gotten the regulatory shake that it deserves, definitely didn't get that under Joe Biden, and that has the ability to really make it rain on favored political operations. And, I think where Trump has maybe taken it an extra step is just the naked self-enrichment of it all. There might have been a world where a different politician would have just done a bunch of favors for crypto in exchange for political support, PAC campaign contributions, things like that.
The sort of generic way that politicians accrue industry money.
Right. But Trump has taken it, to a completely different level, to the tune of billions of dollars in additions to his net worth via his actual holdings of his own crypto products, and in a significant amount of fee-based revenue with stuff like the stablecoin, which the Trump group profits off of every time it's transacted. And it's a great business to be in if you can get it.
Which I think is worth pointing out, though, because those fees are real. The fees exist whether the value of the cryptocurrency goes up, goes down. It doesn't matter when you're making money on the fees.
Correct. And I think this is a really important point. Sometimes the coverage of Trump's crypto holdings tends to be both technically accurate, but a little bit sensationalist, because Trump's holdings of his own crypto tokens are worth so much on paper, whatever it is on any given day. But it's been, at any given time, many billions of dollars. Now, Trump is, especially in the case of his meme coin, the Trump coin, Trump is a major holder of that, but it doesn't actually trade that much. It's not all that liquid, which is a thing you have to remember with really any financial product, but especially with crypto tokens. And so if Trump were actually trying to turn all of those holdings into cash, he wouldn't get anywhere close to what it's all worth on paper. But absolutely, I mean, fee-based revenue is just money. And the Trump group has made a great amount of fee-based revenue on the trading of these products. And that's real money that goes into the bank, that goes into his pocket and the pockets of his partners.
The industry would say that they're in boom times now because the Biden administration was anti-crypto, that Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, was really cracking down on crypto, that they didn't have enough friends in Congress, and that Trump is just helping them flower. Is there any legitimacy to their Biden administration was anti-crypto complaint?
I think reasonable people could have a discussion about what is the appropriate level of regulatory hostility towards crypto. If you think the entire ecosystem is a scam, which many people do, and I think is a reasonable view, then what Gary Gensler's SEC did was just reasonable investor protection. And not only was it in that lens reasonable investor protection, but it was just an effort to treat crypto honestly similarly to how a lot of financial products are treated. One of the biggest fights that the crypto community had with the Biden SEC was about whether certain crypto lending products should be considered securities. The effect is, you're putting money into something, into a common enterprise with the expectation of getting money out of it later on. And the crypto execs really didn't want to be treated as a security because that brings regulatory scrutiny requirements that typical crypto products they would prefer wouldn't have. And so I think in some sense, the crypto community was just upset that it was treated like everybody else. But at the end of the day, these are just people who want to make as much money as possible with as little government interference as possible. And I think sometimes they ascribe a higher-minded financial freedom or individual liberty purpose to it, which would be a little bit too charitable for journalists to just go with.
When we come back, surprise, the Trump family is getting into prediction markets.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game, shifting a little money here, a little there, just hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill, too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Hello, Slate listeners. I'm Felix Salmon from Slate Money, and I have a question for you. Does money make any sense? Like, seriously, my co-hosts Emily Peck and Elizabeth Spires and I recently tried to sort this out when we saw that gold was priced at somewhere north of $4,000 an ounce. It was some kind of something China. Emily maybe didn't understand it. I certainly didn't.
So in the previous discourse during the Biden administration, it was really like China's doing poorly, so it's doing this thing. It's buying gold.
Why would China doing poorly make it want to buy gold?
I don't know.
And then not only that, but suddenly 30 paintings by Bob Ross were up for auction for the first time in forever, and the value of his art doesn't seem to make any sense because it's terrible, which all left Emily asking the most important question of all.
What even is money, you guys?
So if you want to try and understand why money is moneying, then listen to our episode, What Even Is Money, on Slate Money, wherever you get your podcasts.
If you were wandering around the Castro, San Francisco's gay neighborhood, on a Sunday evening in the 80s or the 90s, you might have come across a pink and purple church squeezed between two houses. Not where you'd expect a hopping church scene. But the Metropolitan Community Church was different.
What a bright, shiny, unapologetically gay place to be.
We were really trying to address what does Christianity look like if your starting point is sexuality is good.
You'd also notice a lot of men in the Castro sick with AIDS.
We were going to memorial services, it seemed like every other week.
In 1987, this church started recording its services for people who were too sick to attend. When We All Get to Heaven uses these recordings to tell the story of this queer church and how it made meaning from AIDS. You can find new episodes on Slate's podcast Outward. Follow Outward now to listen.
Shoot, you can't feel that, you're dead.
Well, they're also in this interesting PR position that I'm kind of fascinated by right now. Like, as you mentioned, when I say they, I mean the other platforms and other crypto enthusiasts, put a lot of time and work into saying Sam Bankman-Fried was a bad apple. And we're not full of fraudsters and corrupt actors. We're a legitimate industry. Look, you can, day trade on Coinbase, yada, yada. But then you now have this series of pardons that seems quite focused on the crypto industry and on actors within that industry who have ties to the president. And so it's like, oh, how do we see these pardons? Or do we just try to keep our heads down and make as little noise as possible.
I would imagine that if you were someone who gives a lot of money to Donald Trump and has Donald Trump's ear because of that financial enrichment, that you wouldn't be sure that your crimes are really crimes at this point. Maybe you go through a trial, but there's, I think, a reasonable sense that the big man will be there to save you if you really get into too much trouble. And I think it's obvious why you would think that. Ross Ulbricht is one of the most notorious financial criminals in world history and hurt a ton of people and was let out, I believe, on Trump's second day in office or thereabouts. Changpeng Zhao is the leader of the largest crypto exchange in the world, albeit not one that operates in the United States, but one that has courted U.S. customers and has tried to sort of get involved with Americans' money. And he committed egregious, obvious, admitted anti-money laundering violations. And he's out. I mean, he already had to serve his term, but he gets it off his record and he gets cleared to sort of come back into the business fold in a way that he might not have been able to do if he still had this on his record. So if you're a crypto criminal, sort of a small fish who does not give money to Trumpian causes and doesn't help the president, then maybe your crypto crimes will be treated as actual crimes. But if you were one of the biggest players in the industry and you're a big donor to groups that are trying to help Trump push his agenda or make Trump personally richer, I'm not sure why you would think that you would face long-term consequences for anything that you did in the arena of crypto. I mean, why would you think anything other than I will get a pardon if it comes to it?
I suppose the answer to that is someday someone else will be president.
It's a good answer. So I guess that means do your crimes in the next 2 to 3 years so that they can be processed before another administration has an opportunity to come into power.
I think crypto can still be exceptionally confusing to normies and can seem like something that, I don't know, people are doing on their computer. I don't really understand it, even though, right, the big banks have dabbled in crypto. It has been around for a while. This all feels so explicit in terms of the profiteering and the pardons, but it is striking to me how little people seem to care. If you are a normie listening to this, why should you care?
I think it's interesting to try to get people to care about corruption because in none of these transactions is Trump or are any of his allies in the crypto world reaching into your pocket directly and taking money out of it and giving it to themselves. But I think at the end of the day, either you're okay with people using positions of power and proximity to power to enrich themselves either financially or by giving themselves sort of access to a different type of justice system. And you're okay with that or you're not. And it's so separate from the cost of living issues that most people seem to actually vote on. It's so separate from your own standard of living. But I don't think that most people in a vacuum think it's cool for the president of the country to use his position to make billions of dollars on crypto projects that are being financed in large part by people trying to curry favor with him and cashing it in for things like pardons. Like I don't think that most people are good with that, but I don't know that people care enough about it to impose a political penalty either.
The day before we did this interview, the Trump organization registered some new paperwork with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And I actually just want to read from the filing to you. This is about Truth Social and the Trump Media Group. The streaming platform Truth Plus and the fintech brand Truth.fi today announced that it will make prediction markets available on Truth Social through an exclusive arrangement with Crypto.com. So this is the Trump administration getting into the betting business, also with Crypto.com. And I just wonder, what do you make of that?
Well, it's funny that you call it the betting business because on the one hand, that's exactly what it is. Prediction markets are obviously betting, but in a very real and important sense, they are not quote unquote betting the federal government treats prediction markets as a different kind of commodity futures trading, which is some incredible work by the lawyers of that industry and of companies like Kalshi and Polymarket, which you might have heard of, which host these markets. I, the other night during Sunday Night Football, went on to Kalshi and made an account because I live in California where sports betting is not, strictly speaking, legal. And I was just able to put $50 down in the middle of the Steelers-Packers game on the Packers to win. And it wasn't a bet, right? It was the purchasing of a prediction contract, which I could have sold at a different time during the game. But the odds, almost exactly matched what I would have gotten on the live line at DraftKings or FanDuel. And other than punching in a few different buttons, the user experience was the exact same as it would have been if I were just betting on a DraftKings or a FanDuel. And this is just allowed now under the federal government. And there's no apparent appetite by the Trump administration to do anything about it. And in fairness, this activity had begun or had really gotten popular, but less than now during the Biden administration. They didn't do much about it either. But, Donald Trump Jr. advises one of these companies. It all fits very neatly with sort of the casinoification of large parts of our culture.
I mean, this SEC filing says you can bet on interest rates.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you can bet on. How big the cut will be, when the cuts will be. There are these markets, and people put tens of millions of dollars into some of these markets. I think that the last time I looked, there had been on Kalshi like $55 million wagered there, if you will, or invested in prediction markets there on the New York mayor race. And obviously this has infinite possibilities for abuse, which is another thing that I think you should look out for very closely with the Trump administration. Bill Ackman has pointed out that there is no law against insider trading. He was urging Eric Adams to drop out of the New York mayor's race and said you could put a sizable bet on yourself to drop out on Polymarket, and you wouldn't be breaking any insider trading rules if you did that and then dropped out. I think that in a Washington full of people who will look for every possible angle to enrich themselves, you would be completely ridiculous to assume that nobody in the orbit of politics in Washington, D.C. right now or in the administration is trying to make money off of these kinds of prediction markets trades.
Alex Kirshner, it's great and totally mind-blowing to talk to you. Thank you for coming on.
Great to be with you, Lizzie.
Alex Kirshner is a contributing writer for Slate and one of the hosts of the Slate sports podcast, Hang Up and Listen. And I gotta say, if you want to learn more about the casinoification of America, our sister show, What Next, just did a whole episode on that and sports betting earlier in the week. Just scroll back in the feed and click on Where Sports Betting Got Us. All right, that is it for our show today. What Next TBD is produced by Evan Campbell and Patrick Fort. Our show is edited by Paige Osborne. Mia Lobel is the executive producer here at Slate, and TBD is part of the larger What Next family. We will be back next week with more episodes. I'm Lizzie O'Leary. Thanks for listening.